Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host tonight, Michael Roser, and my guest is returning, James Rink, to discuss exclusively the endeavors and events that he has coming up in the near future, which I think many of you would like to know all about. In fact, what James has planned is so exciting. We thought it would be a good idea for him to come on personally and explain some of the details. So we will get to that in just a moment. But before we do, I have a couple questions I'd like to open with that don't necessarily concern the secret space program directly, but because we're in an all-encompassed reality, there may be a correlation in one way or another. So, James, first and foremost, thank you very much for being with us here again today. I appreciate your presence. I know how busy you are, how much you travel. So every moment that you are here is absolutely wonderful. We are honored. That being said, you know, the moniker Dark Hour Paranormal obviously is sort of a misnomer in terms of how you would describe, or one might describe my channel, considering that we cover all aspects of everything under the esoteric umbrella. And I haven't really talked to you at length about your opinions when it comes to the paranormal, obviously going through the SSP yourself and, some black projects you have under your belt, unfortunately, as it goes. What are your thoughts on the paranormal at large? Are we seeing something that science doesn't necessarily understand yet? Is there more of an etheric principle to this that is separate from us? What are your thoughts on the paranormal?
I was muted. Okay, so we were having some audio issues, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to argue at the same time. Anyway, but not that say we will, but yeah. So the paranormal. Now, reality appears to be some kind of matrix, almost as if we're like in this experiment where they are testing reality. There's multiple realities and certain nefarious organizations, planetary corporations, view these other realities as like a testing ground. So that's one of the issues here. And then we have an issue, according to Jay Essex, and in his opinion, the higher realms and dimensions really don't. They have a certain level of arrogance to them, where they just don't care about people below them. Now, maybe you can place an argument. Well, maybe there is. That's not necessarily like that. But if you look at reality in general, let's just take the example of eating meat. So, in the fairy realms, for example, a thimble of honey could be enough food to feed you for a month. But in our dimension, the need to eat meat, unfortunately, I mean, we can argue, the vegetarians out there could argue whether we need to eat or not, but the human race appears to be an aggregation of many different extraterrestrial hybrid species of hybrid programs. So some humans, unfortunately, do require meat. They'll get sick and weak, but according to Alex Collier, humans, the original human race was created to be cannibals, according to, of course, his source, the Andromedans. Now, if we could be set free, having advanced technologies come in, we could reset exactly what it means to be human, and we could theoretically contact the paranormal. One of my prosperity projects that I want to do is build a Hanator device. And a Hanator allows you to communicate with your dead relatives. So you can walk into this facility, and that is if they're available, because sometimes they might be in another body. Anyway, but yeah, so that's what I think that the paranormal is, where there's other dimensional layers overlapping each other, and that's what we're seeing, like these quantum echoes. Well, it's through time.
Well, you mentioned very briefly timelines, and this is something that, especially going into the black projects and so forth, but, the secret space program, definitely, this concept comes up that we're somehow riding on different timelines, or we're able to jump between different timelines. And yet recently, I have come across a theory within the black project circle of people that suggests this is more based around memories, whether they be implanted, manipulated, one way, shape, or form, rather than actually being on what we would consider a separate timeline altogether from this physicality. What are your thoughts on that?
I certainly believe that we can manifest our own reality. And it does appear, as divine creators that we all are, we all uniquely have the ability to manifest the reality that you want. Now, we're not talking about the law of attraction. It's really the law of magnetism. You have to be the reality that you want to be. So you have to take responsibility for your own actions, and ideally be a good person. But even Satanists think they're good people, right? So being service to others, and so if you hold out that intention, that vibrational frequency, you will magnetically attract that to your reality. At least that's what I've always tried to practice that. I'm hoping that answered your question. I don't even remember what the question was.
It was just about, the idea of timelines in general being, something separate in respect to experience rather than the more recently proposed idea that it's really just memories, that we have different layers of memories. And of course we could talk about that at length considering the black projects, but for most people that are walking around their everyday life, some of them claim to experience what they would consider a completely different timeline. I mean, even in the most austere circumstances or situations, we find an example of somebody who was driving down the highway. Let's say this is out west. I think that one of the more recent stories I heard, this happened out there, and sure enough, they enter into a completely different space where things are happening completely in a contrapuntal sense to what they're familiar with. Whether it's a car that's in front of them was purple a moment ago, now it's green, but it's the same car. The driver was in the driver's seat, but now he's in the passenger seat, and there's somebody else in the driver's. And this happens over a very short window of time, this sort of experience. But there are countless recountances of this type of thing.
So you want me to talk about Mandela effects?
Is it Mandela effects, or is it something larger in dealing with maybe the Earth's magnetic field, or a manipulation of a specific sort of energy that we perceive in our 0 point? What's the word I'm looking for?
Field.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, certainly. So there are some examples of individuals who said that they were driving on an old country road, going over a hill, and there was a drunk driver at the top of the hill that they couldn't see. And instead of killing them, the cars phased through reality. So who is really to say what really is real? Because we are all just energy on a quantum level. But there are, through these other alternate realities, it is very likely, like the idea of ghosts, we could be seen into time. A lot of souls, usually when they leave their body, they do not do the reincarnation thing. Most of them are actually kind of hanging out of body, and that's was confirmed to me by different seers and psychics, because this whole reality is basically one giant matrix. And yeah, certainly I can talk about Mandela effects if you want. Okay, certainly. Okay, so the whole idea of the Mandela effects originated the idea that people remembered Nelson Mandela. He died, but then people remember he was alive, and then he died, and then so the idea is basically one said he died in prison and so on. But other people also, there are other Mandela effects out there where some people remember, even we can get the Barnstein Bears and the Bearstein Bears, the Stein and the Steen, Jiffy and Jiff, and then like the F, like an extra F, and then we have what are these Mandela effects? So what I've been told, at least according to sources from the ACAO, Peter the Insider, if you were visited by the Men in Black, they would to neuralize you, they would take memories from an alternate reality where you didn't experience the phenomenon. So this other alternate reality might have different preview of reality. So that's one theory. another particular theory about the Mandela effects is that essentially there might have been a nuclear war catastrophe. And what it appears that happens is when there has been something like that, a catastrophe, souls can get reset and they go back to the reality where they didn't experience it. And sometimes some people might be able to have a bleed through if you died in that other reality and came back here, but you don't remember dying. So you have memories of both. And I mean, I think both probably are a good example of that. But then we have the issue of CERN. Every time they turn that thing on, their memories all change. So there certainly could be time travelers going back in time. CERN could be sending information because my understanding is that portal isn't big enough to send a person back through it, just information and data. But there is Montauk type time travel programs where they can send a person back and change things.
One of the curious things about Brian Minnick's new book is that he has more evidence that there was an actual prototype of a hadron collider of some type in Montauk underground. And this came from local testimony specifically, although he ties in a few other peripheral aspects that makes you wonder if this actually was the case. Now, in the documentary that I recently put out, we had John D'Souza sitting there saying, well, they had something like a hadron collider down there. And prior to looking into the research that Brian had provided, I was skeptical. I mean, I knew about the Delta T antenna. I knew about some of the other equipment they were using in terms of vacuum tubes. But to have something like a hadron collider and then have John D'Souza express that, yeah, this is what we heard, things are starting to match up a little bit here. So if that's the case, they've been working with this type of technology for a very long time, obviously succeeding in many areas of that field. And, we're privy as the public to know about a hadron collider today. Whereas, this might have been top secret stuff, and God knows if they were able to open up a portal that was bigger than, what atoms could slip through and, utilize that for one reason or another. We just don't know at this point, and we may see some evidence in the future that this is the case, because generally as time goes on, the veil is lifted when people think, or organizations think, that this is something we don't need to protect, this particular aspect of what we're doing. And yet they've moved so far into the future in terms of imagination and technology that we're just distracted with whatever we've got in front of us, rather than thinking about what they might actually be doing after this technology. So that's very curious. And I imagine in your time in the secret space program, you came in contact with a lot of different types of technology, obviously some that we could even say is extraterrestrial born in some sense or another. Do you have any recollection of any of the technology that you may have come up against, during your time in the secret space program?
Yeah, certainly. As a super soldier, we were utilized on missions where we were sent through portals. Typically, it would just look like you were in a black space, a vacuum, and then you would be the location that they directed you, the vector, the time space vector they wanted, through Montauk. Another type of technology they utilized out there were something called a jump room. It's according to astronaut Ken Johnston, is actually called the ARCs, or the Aeronautical Repositioning Chamber. So it looks like a elevator shaft room here, the inside of the elevator. And how long you stay in it could be anywhere between 4 minutes, could take you, say, from Los Angeles, California to Langley in Virginia. Or if you stay in there for 8 minutes, it could take you to the moon or even further out. I think they go as far out as perhaps maybe out the edge of the solar system. And there's thousands of these jump rooms out there. So they really don't need the hadron colliders to open up to travel. what I've been told is they are opening up portals to hell realms, and they're trying to get access to demons to get information, because typically they would conduct a sacrifice of a child and a demon would appear. And yeah. So, oh yeah, you have a comment?
I did, and I lost it. Keep going. Sorry. Oh, I know what it is, but I'll come back to it.
All right. So we have, so ARCs, they also can travel through time. So you could, they go anywhere between 1920 to the year 2060. And what they're actually doing is they're sending people back in time to create a transhumanism timeline where the Greys are running everything. So these particular Greys are from an alternate reality that had nuclear war and humans became the Greys. It took about 40,000 years living underground in the radiation. But so they've come back in time to try to make sure that reality happens for them. But there are other realities, though, where we didn't experience that nuclear war. We're very rare. So, and I think it goes back to that whole thing about manifestation, where by staying positive, we can magnetically change this whole reality to a certain vibration where the dark side's plans just won't stick. Because it takes typically, it was Peter the Insider. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like August of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. The planet actually switched from like 49.9% negative to 50.1% positive. So we're on a slow trajectory. So we're just slightly more positive than negative. And that was just enough on the scale to tip it in the direction to where I think we're going to have the disclosure timeline. So
that being said, we're seeing a real effort from countries like India, China, Russia, United States. There's a handful that are under certain clauses in terms of this space race, and everybody seems to want to get to the moon and put bases on the moon. And I don't buy that we weren't able to do something like this, in the past. I mean, when Apollo 11 went up, maybe to our eyes, this was the first trip out. We don't really know for sure if anybody else had been there documented, prior to that endeavor. But that being said, why now? Why have all these plans now for the moon? Do you think that some of these folks in the black organizations realize what we're up against in terms of a catastrophic tide of events that are maybe headed our way, perhaps naturally with the Earth, perhaps it's our own doing, perhaps it's what they've done interdimensionally, that they're now really looking to our immediate celestial bodies to, find some sort of new home. What are your thoughts on this whole big space race to get to the moon and put bases there?
So we had something called Alternative 1, 2, and 3, and this came back in the early 70s, around 1972, 73. Through Montauk, they looked into the future and they saw nuclear war taking place. And they also saw that every time they went into the future to try to change things, from their perspective, their future anyway, they couldn't stop it. So the elites, I guess they refer themselves as elites anyway, set up these different alternatives to survive. One idea was to blow a hole in the ozone layer to alleviate the heat on the planet. So that one didn't seem too good. The other one was to build facilities underground and survive out a nuclear apocalypse underground. And then the third one was to go to Mars. To go to Mars or other planets off-world to set up these colonies in the breakaway. So there are, there are other alternate realities. Like right now, there was an alternate reality where Hillary Clinton got to be the president, and they had the Antichrist come out in the nuclear war, and 98% of the population is dead. So our souls are still over there. We experienced it, but we don't remember it because we chose to stay here on this higher vibrational timeline because that's who we resonate as. So I think that's, I guess the moral of the story is I'm trying to tell people just stay positive. But yeah, so LOC, Lunar Operations Command, also Lunar LSC, Lunar Space Command, was set up around, it was around the 1930s. Now, some evidence shows the Germans made deals with the Draco as early as 1915, but by 39, the treaties were signed, and the Germans received access to about 100 acres of land on the moon. I believe it's in the Jules Verne crater on the polar side, on the north side, North Pole. But yeah, so it's been built out over the decades, and there's areas at LOC that look like the 1950s and 60s. So it doesn't really get renovated. They just build and build. They keep building out. So yeah, and there's about 50,000. I've been told about 50,000 personnel. So it's quite an extensive operation.
I would certainly say. I mean, for 50,000 people to be living, on a different body within our immediate universe, a lot had to be accomplished to get to that point, which sort of leads me into the realm of Elon Musk and what he's doing. And I find it very interesting, perhaps convenient, that he's the spearhead to, colonize Mars on a larger level. And of course, we all know about this. This isn't some sort of clandestine effort. And yet he doesn't believe that there could be any extraterrestrial life. Or, for that matter, well, I mean, in the realm of possibilities, I don't think he subscribes to that idea. To me, that's just preposterous. I have to wonder what some of those individuals in the higher echelons of black projects that have, possibly or allegedly done this, been there and back, think about somebody like Elon Musk coming into the scene with the gravity that he has, to make something like that a reality, and yet the public is very aware of this. Is this a preparation? I know this is a very rudimentary question, but is it a preparation for what comes next? Is space really the last frontier for us?
Well, it does appear as Musk has been given a script of what to say. Let's see, Oksana, she's been on my show a couple of times, but she remote viewed Elon, but what we see, or what she saw anyway, was it's about 50% positive, 50% negative, and he looks like a clown and the etheric level. So it does look like the positive side is trying to overtake the negative. So yeah, the whole front of all that, it appears to be just something like there's something else, someone else kind of directing that, but he's just the face of the organization. Certainly, what we may be actually experiencing, in my opinion, is disclosure, because remember, through the theory of quantum entanglement, we're in all places at all times. So our higher selves already know there's first contact, disclosure, and space tourism and travel. So we all know on a subconscious level this stuff is real and it's coming, but it hasn't been manifested yet. We're working on it.
You and I could sit here and talk about the secret space program at length, which we certainly will at some point. But before we get deeper into that subject, I'd like to talk a little bit about your conference that's coming up, the plans that you have for the future in respect to these events. James, start us off anywhere you'd like. The floor is yours in this respect, my friend.
Absolutely. So back in 2013, Laurie and Fenton produced the first ever Super Soldier Summit. So this was an event specifically for what we called, so back then we called our community something called a MyLab, which stands for a military abduction. So the idea of a MyLab was they would take a contactee, a starseed that was being abducted by aliens or was a hybrid or so on, and being taken by the military and tested and experimented on. So over the years, we since learned that it was way much worse than that we were told and we originally believed. We had some experiencers. I think it was Michael Ralph. I think it was back in the early 2000s. He described a whole lifetime on Mars, and we're like, where is this coming from? And then that's when we realized there were these what Jason Rice called the career return programs, or the 20 and back. So it's actually more than 20 back for some cases. It could be 60 and back, and then they could do repeats of these 60s and backs over and over and over again. They can use a particular person as much as they can until they are not usable anymore. There is a limit. So typically a person would be taken for 20 years and utilize these projects and then put back and then have their memories erased. So back then in 2013 anyway, there was we had a vibrant disclosure community with like UFO disclosure and like, oh, are they really real? And who's in them? And then we realized that it's actually our own military. A lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, but these classified craft. And then we realized that they were Germans mostly, because the Germans dominate the breakaway. And then if you'd seen my presentation about the SSP, then you understand what happened. But essentially,
can I jump in here very quickly, just because you mentioned the Nazis, and one thing I understand is that there are a lot of memorials that are dedicated to von Braun and that whole team that worked with NASA and everything. I don't know if they have a flag on the moon. I wouldn't be surprised if the United States had gone that route, but again, it's just really unfathomable to me to know that these people of that faction and of that mindset are being honored, even though they were complete shitbags. Yes, they made some great advancements in technology for us, sure. But, obviously Project Paperclip was the proponent to this. I don't know. It blows my mind. Sorry, go ahead.
So I guess you're asking more about the different German factions. So we had a faction that came out of Prussia from the 1850s that made deals with the tall whites and to access their portal technology. So as early as 1850s, some of the rich and elite of Germany were already settling Mars. And then we had, of course, the deals with we had the Vril girls, Damans, who were channeling aliens from Aldebaran and providing them research and knowledge on how to create one of these ARV vehicles where they can, well, of course, that's alien reproduction vehicle, but these levitation crafts that copy them. So by the course of the 1920s, the Germans started going off world of Mars and the moon as early they could go. But really, it wasn't until the 40s till a lot of that was built out. They needed a lot of personnel, hence the reason why they have 20 and backs, because if you could grab a person right out and return them seconds after you take them, and they've gone for 20 years, re-age, or put a new clone body or whatever, theoretically, you can get access to an enormous, almost an unlimited amount of slave labor. So that is a particular feature of SSP disclosure, are basically human trafficking and slavery. And so we have a cabal that runs the United States, a group of banksters that run the United States and the Soviet Union. They were actually friends at the time. They were secretly in agreement with each other. They're loyal to each other. Not loyal, but united is a better word to say. So united against the Germans in Antarctica, where a lot of them escaped to during World War II, and the New Schwabenland base. So the American cabal witnessed how advanced technology of the Germans in these underground facilities, and also the advancements in mind control and the concentration camps. Josef Mengele, they found some of these Jews were Draco hybrids, and they would shapeshift and turn and became vampires in these concentration camps when they were. So he was experimenting on that particular aspect of those genetics, And then when the Americans found out about it, they brought them back here. It's to continue that research. But and yeah, we have, of course, not NASA scientists who were former Nazis, but that rocket technology was already obsolete by the 1950s. So so we have a whole apparatus where it was about 1955. A treaty was not truce. A truce took place between the United States government under that would have been the Eisenhower administration and the Nazi Germans. So, or not, well, I guess it wasn't not, they weren't Nazis anymore. They considered themselves more German than Nazi. So these particular Germans agreed to share theory, but not technology to the cabal. So they would put their scientists and engineer on all these board of directors of these corporations. And in fact, we had kind of a takeover. So the whole situation is like, who's in control? I think the whole thing is a giant mess because we have negative aliens who are benefiting from the trafficking of humans off world, who are have a vested interest in making sure that you don't know. And we also have humans and governments and banks and corporations. It's really, really bad. So I set up this Super Soldier Talk to educate people over the years. My channel is Super Soldier Talk on, well, YouTube, but I've had a self-purge, about 4 years of content. I've had 12 strikes already through various channels. I don't know. You have a question?
And Rumble. You're on Rumble as well, right?
Absolutely, yes. I'm on Rumble. And my full archive is there. I managed to back everything up. There was a moment where YouTube was deleting, like, I think they deleted 3 videos in less than 24 hours. And I realized somebody over there was, and they went back like 2 years in time and picking this and that. And so then I realized they were already targeting me. So I self-purged. So, but the full archive's on Rumble. And over the years, I wanted to create a place where the SSP veterans could feel loved and appreciated, because I've gone to other conferences and most of the time it was very well received. There was occasions where I was extremely disappointed, and that was my grounds of inspiration to create a community where we could all become together. And that's when I brought in who at that time my colleague Brian Sang, and I asked him to help fund my conference. And I also helped raise other funds from other sources, so it wasn't just him. But ultimately, the bill was going to be way too high, and we didn't have enough time. We really needed a whole year. So I told my organization we're going to do it next year. So amazingly, I'm still kind of in shock about this. But that particular person, I mean, he took my confidential information, my notes that I've been putting together for nearly, I guess that would have been 11 years. Yeah, 11 years now, since 2013. And used his own money, went behind my back, set something up with the same people that I was going to recruit, and then added more on my list that I had. So my listeners were so upset at this. Money was given to me to set something up small. So we have a first ever Super Soldier Talk conference. It's called Timeline of Disclosure. Actually, he was trying to bury my name. He was he bribed me with some money. Well, he threatened to sue me to get his donation back to bury the name that I came up with. So I borrowed money from some people. The total bill he wanted back was $3,300. So I had to borrow money, and I decided I found a venue that was extremely affordable. And then we're going to bring it out on the beach. We're going to so it kind of like we start at the venue, then we go over to the beach later on. It's like 2 blocks away. And then the next day we go back to the beach. And again the next day. So we have food available for you as part of your ticket. And if you want to purchase a ticket, please go to timelineofdisclosure.com. The people that those other people, they reported my link to Facebook, so I can't even post it anymore. They're trying to, but anyway, so I'm just going to keep pushing forward. The conference is paid for already, so it's definitely happening, guys. So please come on out.
So what else can we expect from this conference? You mentioned being on the beach and having a setup there. Do you have any speakers that have confirmed that they're definitely going to come around? What would people be looking for going out to this event with you?
I was trying to share my screen here. Let's see if I can I do? It's weird when I'm not running it. Okay, there we go. Add it to the thing. Add it. You have to add it.
Let me see here.
All right, so we got this. Let's zoom in here. We've got the. Oh, that's a little too much. Sorry about that. The first ever time. So it's July 11th to the 14th. The actual facility that we have booked at the Holiday Inn is the 11th to the 12th. But you're welcome to stay at the Holiday Inn if you want to that weekend. The price goes up. I think they were, even with my discount, the Thursday, Friday night discount, I think it was still coming out to $201 a night for a double queen bed, but plus tax. So, but you're going to be 2 blocks away from the beach. And so if you come out, so we want you to come out on that Thursday night. And I might actually go over to my website here too. Let's see if can I do that? Because I have the schedule. Let's see. I'm going to go over to actually here. Let me share this screen.
All right.
So, because I have the full thing over there. I'm going to do window. I think this is it. All right, guys. So this is the link to the. Oh, go ahead. Put in there. Here's a link to the Ticket Spice page here. So here's a address to the venue. So we're gonna start off at this hotel. I wonder if I probably have a picture not on this website, the picture of the hotel. But we're gonna go there from 7 o'clock Thursday from 7 to 10 p.m. We're gonna be we'll have an opening ceremony and also Q&A for you. There's no food for you on Thursday. But there is Friday, so I've got 3 meals for you on Friday. There's breakfast and lunch at the hotel. Let me see if I can make this bigger so you guys, maybe that's easier for you to see. And then we have 2 session rooms for you, so you can pick what you want. And I'm working on a way to make sure everyone that buys a ticket has access to the live stream pass, so you can go in there and watch it after the conference is over if you want. We have, so from 7 to 4 p.m., we're going to be at the Holiday Inn. And then after that, we're going to go set up shop over there on the beach. We're going to bring in some food and some tents for you. So that's included in your admission. I got some music for you, and just make sure you bring your towels and suntan lotion, all that. But
now, is this going to be completely centered around the secret space program, or do you have speakers or topics that'll be addressed, excuse me, in a more peripheral sense to that field? What are we looking at?
Yes. We of course we have James Rink. That's me. I'm going to be sharing about the super soldier alignment projects. Dylan's got the deep state maps. He's got some maps about the Cabal and the secret space program. Raw Cloud works for the U.S. Navy Alliance, so he gets a lot of downloads, and it'll be really curious to see because he does videos regularly. Some of his updates. We're working on getting Ashton there. We need about $500 more money to get him there. So if you have $500, you want to make a donation, we'll be thrilled to do it. We got to get him out from Canada. So Ashton was served in Nachtwaffen. He has full recall of a lot of his memories, and I'm going to ask him to maybe speak about the Draco bubble, and essentially there's like a pocket reality right near in our solar system where the Draco have their fleets parked and knocked off in, and so essentially, yeah. Anyway, we'll just go on here. So Lauren's going to channel the dolphin. She also served in Solar Warden, so I was able to give her another spot so she can speak about what life was like in Solar Warden. And Solar Warden, of course, is the U.S. Navy's secret space program, or at least one of their breakaways. It's actually, we were discussing it earlier that they had like tokens in order to use back in the early 80s. They would use tokens on all the equipment. So that way, if there was ever a mutiny, they wouldn't be able to run any equipment because they didn't have enough tokens. And essentially what happened is some of the tokens were being restricted, and people were having medical issues. They would go down on planets and get radiation sickness, and they need tokens to run the med beds, but they weren't given enough tokens. And then so essentially it was I served on that craft, and I was arranging tokens to be arranged through a back channel means behind their back, and then I got caught and tortured. Anyway, it's long. Sorry.
Well, is there any, today, is there any physical evidence of these tokens out of curiosity? I mean, I understand that, this might be at a different place in time, but is there anything like that?
I tell you what, Michael, how about this? Let's try to get you a ticket to come on out. We can talk about it afterwards to see how we can make it happen. And then you can ask Lauren yourself. All right. So Oksana Buchanan. So Oksana is one of the most amazing psychics that I've ever met. She goes in a full-on trance, and she can channel your memories. I know that's kind of like a controversial subject in this field because, but if you see, there are some people that are using these programs that were placed in clone bodies, and when they are conducting these 20 and backs, the memories don't rehome back. So I do some regression work, and I am pretty good at it. At least I think I'm good at it. But there are people that are still blocked. So Oksana is one way you can get around that. But she also served in Nachtwaffen, and she'll be sharing some of her own experiences. Her and I, we've done reports together. I had the Flying Cobras division. It's about this facility on Mars where there's Nazis there, and they're torturing children and training them to be super soldiers. And I had some other reports. But yeah, so I think you really love to hear what Oksana has to say. And by the way, I have talked to a lot of different psychics over the years, and I give them like tests and examples. And she is probably one of the more accurate ones out there. Like if you say, Oksana, I lost my keys, please help me. And she says, I don't think they're in your house. And they were in my car. Because by the way, if you ever lose your wallet or keys, always look at that driver's seat. Well, if you drive, driver's seat of your car, because that's usually there. Oh, Michael, go ahead. Ask your question.
No, that's really interesting. We, like yourself, I've spoken to many different mediums and clairvoyants over the years, and I do find that there are some that seem to have a more translucent filter, or they're able to be a little bit more accurate. And I'm sure there are many reasons we could discuss that might lend to that reality. But just something that's on my mind, I don't think I've addressed before within the secret space program specifically, but we also see this in Black Project circles as well. There's sometimes a moment where somebody who's been involved in SSP or otherwise meets somebody else, and they have a memory of that person maybe being more tyrannical than helpful on a mission, or as a superior, or something along those lines. And I find in many cases, the person that's remembering who this person was to them in that setting to become very irate. And this carries over within whatever friendship or relationship they end up forging. Do you think this sort of behavior or this type of mindset is justified because somebody remembers, a traumatic event that they shared with this person, even though the person standing in front of them isn't of that same character anymore?
Well, my opinion on that is if they're under mind control, that could also affect you. I guess I'll come out about this. There was an individual who came on my show um, who manufactured some of his experiences to try to turn this into a joke. And that particular individual served with me in Solar Warden and was a close friend. And so this particular person is under mind control, and so we have this issue where you just gonna need to try to forgive. I know it's hard. It's not easy, and a lot. Maybe some people probably do not deserve to be forgiven, but that's the burden that you're gonna have to bear. The type of person that you want to be. But,
Well, forgiveness, just to remind people, isn't necessarily about the other person that you're forgiving. It's about finding that peace and that resolve for yourself. When you forgive somebody that way, it doesn't matter what comes next for that other person. It's just about, that centering in yourself. So, I mean, I think you just said something very important there that I want to reiterate because of that importance. And that is that I do believe we need to look at those aggressors that, we may remember in one capacity or another and forgive them. Because if you're not doing that, you're not moving out of that space. You can't walk around and say that you're working on self-healing when you're not addressing that in a specific fashion. That has to come first. It's part of this healing journey, and like you say, James, it's not easy, but that's just part of the process. So again, I wanted to reiterate what you had mentioned there, because I think that's very important for people in all of these circles to remember at this point in time, because as it's been explained, we have the opportunity to do that. We have the opportunity to heal those aspects of ourselves that have been smeared or adulterated in whatever way, shape, or form, given what we've been thrown into. Because again, if you don't, you're just going to carry it into whatever experience comes next, whether that's immediately here in the physical tomorrow, or under the idea or auspicion that we may come back in a reincarnation sense. Maybe we're taking that into the next life too. And God, that's got to be more confusing, to have that element coming into a life, not really being able to place anything about it, and yet still having an emotional reaction behind those memories or those feelings.
yeah, so that's why we have a super soldier out there to take care of people that have in the projects. But in the here and now, we're all civilians, and we're just doing the best we can to deal with the trauma. All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for that. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy. Is there anything else that you want to express about the conference coming up? It's in Orlando, correct?
No,
No, where is it? Sorry.
it's located in the Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, which is in the St. Petersburg area. So it's on the West Coast. It's about 11 miles from the St. Petersburg airport, which is what we recommend you fly out if you're not local anyway. And then, you can see right here, we changed different locations. We have Indian Shores, which is, I think that's like 2 miles away from the beach. So the next day we go, it's like a public park. It's for the Day of Being gathering. And then I'm going to have an area where we're going to have an SSP reunion, some tents set up for you guys. And then we'll, on the next day, we go to the Treasure Island, which is I think it's about 30 minutes south of there. There's a drum circle in the evening, but we're also going to set these tents up so we can. I'll have like a yoga session, a class for you, or we can do. We'll have a few speakers. They'll share. And Oksana, I've asked her. She's agreed to it to help channel some of your. If you want to know if you were in the Secret Space program, you can. So the beach stuff is like I mean. It's going to be free, but we really hope you come out and pay, because we have bills to take care of, and I do want to provide lunches for you guys on that Saturday, Sunday. But first things first. So timelinedisclosure.com. We know if you won't tell them the truth, we will.
I absolutely love it. I think this is going to be a fantastic endeavor, and I do hope that a lot of you out there watching will join us for this event. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And James has put a lot of hard work and thought behind who he decides to have there, at what capacity, and I think you're going to see that reflected in the experience if you come down and join. All this information that James is mentioning can be found on those websites. You will find the links in the description, as they should be. And if you are interested in making a donation, we'll have a link provided for that as well. And we appreciate it and thank you before and above all else. So, hey, James, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this. I'm very excited, and I think a lot of other people, once they start catching wind, will be picking up that momentum as well. And I think this is going to be a fantastic effort, man.
All right. And I've also offered amnesty to some of the people that banded together against me, not the event coordinators. So if you're a part of that list, just anyway, but I'm also looking for volunteers, but probably by the time this gets to you, we've already full. And then Michael, let's talk later and see what we can do to get you out on the beach. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It sounds like an absolute plan. And once again, everybody, check out the links in the description. If you have any questions that aren't answered within that avenue, you can either contact James directly through the emails, or his contacts, or you can contact me if you need me for anything. But we're here. We're communicative. We're vocal. Come join us. This is going to be an absolute blast. Thank you, James, once again for coming on tonight, and we'll certainly have you again, my friend.
Love and light to you all. Bye-bye.